Hi, I'm Joshua. In this video, I'm going to be drawing a page from my graphic novel, and I'm going to be talking about 4 things you should be thinking about while you're inking comics. Over the past year and a half, I've been working on a graphic novel called Walby's Road Trip Adventure, and when I started out working on this project, I was really struggling with inking. Inking is such an important element of drawing comics, and it took me a long time to figure out what makes good inking. And today I'm going to be talking about 4 things, 4 main elements that will help improve your inking. And this can be inking for comics or other illustrations. So let's get into it. So the first thing you need to be thinking about while you're inking is structure. And this is something that you need to think about starting out in the sketching stage when you're first sketching out your drawing. It's important to think about what you're drawing as a physical object that you could look at from different angles. Because if you're not thinking about that, then your finished drawing will look flat. So to avoid that, you need to build your drawing using 3-dimensional shapes. Like if you're drawing a house, think about it as a cube or a collection of cubes. So when you're drawing the front of the house, which would be the front of the cube, don't just draw the front part. Draw the back of the cube and the sides of it. Make sure the dimensions are working so it doesn't look flat when you in the finished picture. If the sketch isn't working out, then the inking isn't going to work out either. The second important element of good inking is texture. Everything you're going to be drawing has to have its own specific texture. The lines you put down for a cloud would be more soft and smooth looking than the lines you put down for a brick or for grass. For instance, when you're drawing a box, think about the lines that you're using to draw it, and think about how you can portray in the best way possible the condition of the box. Is it a brand new box? Then the lines could be really smooth and crisp. And if the box is old and beat up, then you can emphasize that with the lines that you use to draw it. Really good inking applies that same principle to everything in the picture. It's good to use reference photos of the things that you're drawing just to train your mind to have a feel for the different strokes you should use to indicate the different textures and the different details on things. Number 3 is character. Good inking should have character to it. When you're inking, it's important to not let the process get too mechanical. Think about the lines that you're putting down and make sure they don't all look the same. Using thicker lines to emphasize something and thinner lines to de-emphasize something, if you want to focus on a certain element in the picture, thicker lines to draw that thing. That's a really big part of good inking if you know how to use that right. Like a variation of lines, not only a medium-sized line. Usually the contour line, the line that is around an object, is the thickest line, like the outside of a tree or the outside of a face. And use finer lines for smaller details in the picture. Remember when you're inking that choosing to use a variation of lines from thick to thin, it makes for a much more interesting drawing. Number 4 is shadow. This is a really important part of inking, and it's a huge part of what I was missing early on in my inking. Drawing shadows helps whatever you're drawing to look like it's actually there in the scene. Figure out where your light is coming from in your scene, and then put the shadows on the opposite side of all the objects. You can use hatching or cross-hatching, or depending on how dark you want it to be, you could even just fill it in completely with the ink. Shadows are really important. They make whatever you're drawing feel like it's an actual object, and they bring a lot of life to the drawing. So the thing that helped me the most was seeing how other artists did these things with their inking. And now that you know these things, the structure, texture, character, and shadow, you'll know what to be looking for when you look at other examples. Another thing that helped me a lot was just taking other drawings and inking over them. Those drawing exercises helped me improve really quickly and effectively. And I have a link in the description box where you can download the sketch of this page in the video, and you can practice these tips. So this is the sketch that you can download in the link in the description below, and you can just print it out on a piece of paper, and you can use one of these pins. I have a brush pin that has bristles and it has ink in it, and so it has a lot of line variation. It makes really thin lines or really thick lines depending on how hard you press down on it, and that can be useful for doing the different textures on things. Or if you have one of these finer point pins with a harder tip, you can make line variation if you go over certain lines again to make them thicker. If you do this practice, you'll be able to try all the different things that I talked about. This comic book, Walby's Road Trip Adventure, is coming to Kickstarter in a couple weeks, on May 24th. If you want to get notified when it launches, you can go to walbycomics.com and sign up there. So thank you for watching. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you in the next video.